G'day guys, welcome to a review with answers and working out of formative assessment number 2. Alright, so first things first, we've got the addition of some fractions. So as always, first thing I would do is write it down in a format that's a little bit easier to work with. 1 2/3. So at the moment, what I want to try and do is get rid of the 1 and perhaps just make it into an improper fraction. So that would be 1/2 plus 3 times 1 plus 2 over 3, which essentially makes it 1/2 plus 5 over 3. From there, move it back up the top here. What I want to do is put these to the lowest common denominator. So what I'm going to do is multiply this one over here by 3 and multiply this one by 2. So 3 times 1 gives me 3 over 6. And if you look at that, this was 1/2. That very clearly, hopefully, will represent 1/2 as well. So for the second part of the equation, what I need to do is multiply that by 2. So that will give me 10 over 6. Now that these have a common denominator, I can make that 13 over 6. 6 goes into 13 twice, remainder 1. So essentially that will give me 2 and 1/6. Okay. From there, moving on to question number 2, which is a basic decimal subtraction. So again, writing it down in a easy to work with format, making sure that I align my decimals. 293.273 minus 108.371. 3 minus 1 will give me 2, 7 minus 7 gives me 0, 2 minus 3 I can't do, so I will make that into a 2, borrow that 10, leaving me 12 minus 3 gives me 9. Again, I can't take 8 away from 2, so I'll drop this to 8, that will become 12, 12 minus 8 will give me 4, 8 minus 0, 8, 2 minus 1 gives me 1. Notice up here though that my answer is to be in 2 decimal places, so I'm going to round that down. Final answer is going to be 184.90, because that 2 has rounded down. Okay, so this next one we're looking at a division of a fraction. Okay, so 1 2/3 divided by 5/7. Okay, so again, what I'm going to do is try and convert that into an improper fraction. So that would be 3 times 1 plus 2 over 3 divided by 5/7. That simplifies down to give me 5/3 divided by 5/7. What I can do there is, rather than dividing, I can invert or flip that one there. Gives me 5/3 times 7/5. The 5's will cancel each other out, leaving me 7/3. 7/3, 3 goes into 7 twice, remainder 1. So that will give me 2 and 1/3 remaining. Okay, so moving on to question number 4. So what is the cost of 214.6 metres at $17 per metre? So given that our cost is in per metre, we can simply just multiply that. So 214.6 times 17 is going to be fairly straightforward. So 6 times 7 is going to give me 42. 7 times 4 is going to give me 28, plus 4 will give me 32. 1 times 7, or 7 times 1, will give me 7, plus 3 gives me 10, so I carry the 1. 2 times 7 will give me 14, plus the 5 will give me 15022. This one here, so it's just basically 1 times 214.6. Put that one down there, and because it's simply just multiplying by 1, I can drop that straight in. Okay. Add those together. I get 2, 8, 4, 6, 3. In my original multiplication, I only had the 1 decimal place. So if I simply move that one decimal place to there, my answer is $3,648.20. Okay, on to question number 5, which is just going to be an average. If you're looking or thinking about mean, median, or mode, in this scenario where they've just asked for the average, we're just going to go with the mean. Okay, so going to get a bit cramped trying to put that in here with this pen, so I'm just going to do it off to the side. Okay, so now they're all written down there. We'll add them together. So 7 plus 1 gives me 8, plus another 7 is going to give me 15, plus 2 is 17, 23 plus 1, 23, 24. 4 down, carry the 2, 2 and 2 is 4, 7, 10, 14, 18, plus 5 is going to give me 23. 2 plus 1 is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So when I add all those together, I get 83.4. Over here, if I just look at 83.4 divided by 6, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 samples. 8 divided by 6 will give me 1, remainder of 2. So the 23 divided by 6 is going to give me 3, remainder 5. 54 divided by 6 will give me 9. So my answer is going to be 13.9. Moving on to question number 6. So I'm going from 960 knots to feet per second. So if I'm going from feet per second to knots, I'm going to multiply by 0.6. So to go back the other way, I'm going to divide. So if I have 960 divided by 0.6, what I'm going to do is, to make that a whole number, I'm going to times that by 10, times that by 10, giving me 9,600 divided by 6. So 9 divided by 6 will be 1, remainder of 3. 36 divided by 6 will give me 6, leaving me with a final answer of 1,600 feet per second. Rightio, moving on to question number 7. So this is looking for the outside surface area of a hemisphere. If my diameter is 20, I know that my R is going to equal 10 centimeters. So the formula for a sphere is going to be 4 pi R squared. So the hemi is going to be half of that. Okay, so substitute some values in there. So I'm essentially looking at 4 times 3.14 times 10 times 10 divided by 2. Okay, so what that is going to be is 1256 divided by 2. 1256 divided by 2. We'll work that out quickly up the top here. So the area is going to, of the outside of that hemisphere is going to be 648 square centimeters. Okay, so from there, moving on to question number 8. So the way I find these easiest is to separate my numbers to one side and then my powers, or 10 to the power of, to the other side. So what I'm looking at here is 2.4 times 1.5 times 3. If I look at that one there, if I divide that by 3, I'll have 2.4 times 0.5 over 1, which essentially is going to be 1.2. Over the other side now, working with my indexes. So if I'm looking at 10 to the power of 6 times 10 to the power of minus 8 over 10 to the power of negative 5. Because that's a negative 5, I can move that around up here and just make it times 10 to the power of positive 5. So when I'm multiplying all these, it is essentially going to be that plus that plus that. Okay, so essentially that's going to come down to 10 to the power of 6 plus negative 8 plus 5. 6 plus negative 8 is going to put me at negative 2, plus the positive 5 puts me up to 10 to the power of 3. Leaving my final answer for that one as 1.2 times 10 to the power of 3 in correct scientific notation. Okay, moving on with question number 9. Okay, so we are looking for volume of a cylinder with a radius of 7 and a length of 1 meter. I'm going to go ahead and just put that straight into centimeters so that my units are the same. Alright, so volume equals base times height. Area of my base, being a circle, is going to be pi r squared. So if I look at 22 over 7 times 7 times 7, so radius squared is 7 times 7. One of those 7s will cancel out one of those 7s, give me 22 times 7. 22 times 7 gives me a total of 154 centimeters squared. In order to get that there, so my volume again is base times height, which equals 154 centimeters squared times 100 centimeters for the height, leaving me with 154 times 100, so is 15,400 cubic centimeters. Moving on to question number 10. So if I look at this one here, I'm looking at 3 chemicals mixed in a ratio of 5 to 2 to 1. So in a total, I'm adding those together and there is going to give me 8 parts. Okay, so 480 divided by 8 essentially means that each part is going to weigh 60 grams. So of the second, we're looking at 60 grams times 2 equaling 120 grams of part 2. Starting with question number 11. Okay, so if I arrive at 3:16 in the morning, having flown for 8 hours and 34 minutes, what time did I depart? Okay, so hopefully you can see straight away that if you've arrived at 3 o'clock in the morning and you've been flying for 8 hours, you would have taken off the previous day. So what I'm going to do is add the 24 hours of the previous day on there, and then take my 8 hours and 34 minutes away from that. So put that as 27:16, so 24 plus 3 hours and 16 minutes, minus 8 hours and 34 minutes. So very quickly you'll see that I can't take 34 away from 16. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to borrow. That will go down to 6. Unlike adding decimals, this doesn't go to 100. It actually is adding 60. So what that essentially becomes is 76. So 16 plus 60 giving me 76. Okay, much easier to work with. So 6 minus 4 gives me 2. 7 minus 3 gives me 42 minutes. Here again, I need to borrow. That will drop down to 1. That can come across to there. So 16 minus 8 will give me 8. 1 minus 0. So essentially what I left at was 1842 or 6:42 p.m. on the previous day. Okay, so that essentially wrapped up the arithmetic section. From there, we'll go straight into our algebra. So, question 1 of this part is to calculate x or find x to 1 decimal place. So step 1 is to remove the brackets, which is essentially going to be (2x minus 2) equals negative 6 minus 3x. Okay, from there what I would like to try and do is to isolate the x's out onto one side. So I'm going to take that 3x, move it over to the other side, so 2x minus 2 plus 3x equals negative 6. This time, or my next step, I want to move 2 off, so that will give me 2x plus 3x equals negative 6 plus 2. From there I can simplify those two out, so that will be 5x equals negative 4. So x equals negative 4 divided by 5. Negative 4 divided by 5 will give me minus 0.8. Okay, moving on to question number 2. Find y when y equals 7p to the power of a half plus 2p minus 8 when p equals 9. So I guess the first thing probably to do there is to rewrite that in a formula, or sorry, in a format that works. So 7 times, or y equals 7 times the square root of 9 to the power of 1. Yeah, so when I take, well, I rewrite that, it is p to the power of 1, and the sign, or the number under the division line becomes the root. So if that was 3, we would be looking at a cubic root. Okay, so plus 2 times 9 minus 8. So 7 times 3 plus 2 times 9. So it's going to be 18 minus 8. So that will be 21 minus, 21 plus 18 minus 8. So 8 from here and go straight onto there. So it's just going to be 21 plus 10. So y should equal 31. Moving on to algebra question number 3. So again, what we're going to do is, instead of substituting a single value being p, we're now substituting multiple values in. Okay, so y equals the square root, so square because there's no value there, b squared, so minus 5 squared minus 4 times 2 times 3. So minus 5 is going, or sorry, minus 5 squared is going to be 25 minus 8 times 3, so that's going to be 25 minus 24. So y equals square root of 1. 1 times 1 is 1, so y is equal to 1. Okay, so moving down onto this one here. So it's probably easiest just to look at these as a multiply sign in this instance. Okay, So what you'll notice is that m to the power of 4 will cancel out m to the negative 4, so those two will cancel out. N to the negative 3, n to the positive 3 will cancel out, which will essentially leave us at n to the negative 2 over m to the negative 2. Given that these are both negative, if we're moving it to the other side, or the from on top of the line to under the line, essentially all we're going to do is remove the negative sign. Same for the m going up. So if we put it to m squared over n squared. Another equally as correct way could be m squared times m to the negative 2. So being underneath is the same as the negative 2. So I guess you could look at either of those two examples as correct. Okay, moving on to question number 5. So I'm going to do this one via the elimination method. Main reason I chose elimination is that's plus d, that's minus d. So if I add these two equations together, that's very rapidly going to eliminate d. So 2c minus d equals 14. C plus d equals 1. So just adding those equations together is 3c equals 15. D cancels out, so you could write the 0d in there if you wanted to. So c equals 15 divided by 3, which equals 5. From there, all I need to do is put the c equals 5 into the equation above. So 5 plus d equals 1. So d equals 1 minus 5. Therefore d equals negative 4. So over here I could write c equals negative 4. If I wanted to just check that, what I could do is substitute those values back in here. So 2 times 5 minus negative 4 equals 14. So 10 minus a negative is a plus equals 14. So I know that those two values are correct. Okay, moving on to algebra question number 6. So for this one, again, so this is a quadratic equation, which you have your two options. You can either use factorizing or the formula. Given that this one here is 3 and 4, I think I might have a go at factorizing this one. Okay, so first things I will look at is I'll put a multiple there and a plus there. So the two factors must multiply together to give me negative 4. When I add them together, they have to give me negative 3. So 1 and 4 is probably my first factors there. 2 and 2 doesn't really work because they're not going to give me my does not equal 3, so that's not going to work for me. What I'll look at here is I'm going to start with plus 1, so positive 1 plus negative 4 is going to give me negative 3. So if I put that over here, p plus 1, p minus 4. From there, in order to check that and make sure that I've factorised it well, what I'll do is I'll expand that out of its brackets. So p times p will give me p squared plus p times negative 4 will be minus 4p plus 1p minus 4. Bring that down, p squared minus 3p minus 4. That matches my original equation. Okay, so from there I know that I've factorised that correctly. So essentially p equals, p plus 1 equals 0 and p minus 4 equals 0. Taking those out, if I look at this, so p minus 1, equals 0 minus 1, which equals negative 1. Over here, p minus 4 equals 0. So p equals 0 plus 4, which equals 4. So over here I could write p equals negative 1 or plus 4. Okay, moving on to algebra question number 7, and we're looking at logs. So if your questions are given to you in this sort of format, that's as far as they expect you to take it. What you really need to remember is the formula, which is 10 log 10 of output over input. Okay, generally this is going to be larger, and this will be smaller. Yeah. So if I divide a large number by an extremely small number, I'll get a very large result. And you're expecting it to be a couple of thousand would be a standard sort of amplifier gain. So down here, drop that down, 10 log 10 of 4.9 watts. That's in watts. This one here is in milliwatts. So to convert it, I'm just going to multiply it by 1000. So my decimal point was there, 1, 2, 3, 0.007. So in order to calculate that out, we'll just do it over to the side here. So 4.9 divided by 0.07. So what I need to do is multiply this or move that decimal place across 4 decimal places so that I'm dividing it by 7. 49,000 divided by 7 should be nice and easy to work out as 7,000. So from there, all I have to do is 10 log 10, 7,000. And that is in the formula they've left there. So the reason this 10 here is because we're giving our answer in decibels, so deci being a multiplier of 10. Okay, so moving on to 12.8, which is our second log question in this formative exam. So what we're looking at here is log 2 to the power of q, log 2 of q equals 5. easy way to remember is the snail. So 2 to the power of 5 equals x, or q in this example. So 2 to the power of 5, that makes it nice and easy. 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 equals 32. Therefore, q equals 32. So go back over here. 2 to the power of 5 equals. Okay, moving on to geometry question number 1. What is an angle that is greater than 90 degrees but less than 180? Well, an acute is 0 to 90. Beyond 180 is going to be a reflex. Only answer left for us here is an obtuse angle. Okay, so supplements and complements. So C for complement comes before S for supplement. So that's the easy way to remember is C equals 90 degrees, S equals 180. So essentially, if I'm going to find the supplement, all I need to do is 180 degrees minus 139.24. So again, the first thing that I need to remember is I'm not dealing with decimals here because I'm looking at degrees and minutes. Okay, so 60 minutes make up 1 degree. So what I would do is borrow from there, which gives me a 7, puts a 10 onto there, borrow there, that leaves me with 9, and instead of putting a 1 like that, I'm going to make this to 60. So 60 minus 24 is going to give me 36. So 179 minus 39 gives me 40. And if you've estimated well, if you round that up to 140, 140 plus 40 would give you your 180. So you know your answer is going to be ever so slightly higher than 40 degrees, as it is there. Moving on to geometry question number 3. So if this is my angle up here, 12 is going to be my opposite. The height of the tower, which I'm trying to calculate, is going to be my adjacent. So if I remember SOHCAHTOA, I have opposite and adjacent. So essentially what I'm looking at is tan theta equals opposite over adjacent. I have the angle, so tan of 53 degrees equals 12 divided by the adjacent. What I can do there is swap those two around, leaving me with the adjacent equals 12 divided by tan 53, which equals 12 divided by, if I look up in my chart just quickly, or my graph, I'm looking at tan 53 is 1.327. So 12 divided by 1.327 is going to give me approximately 9 meters. Okay, so moving on from that one, this time we have calculate the length of line BC. This is one of those times where you can either go through c squared equals a squared plus b squared, or if you're happy with the concept of a 3, 4, 5 triangle, you would just be happy to recognise that relationship and call it 50 centimetres. Rightio, moving on to question number 5. This time we have a hypotenuse and an adjacent, and we're trying to calculate P. Using SOHCAHTOA, we don't have anything to do with the opposite, so those two are out, so we are going to be using cosine. So cosine theta equals adjacent over hypotenuse, which equals 36 over 72. Hopefully you can look at that relationship and just know very quickly that that's looking at half. So essentially what we're looking for is cosine theta equals 0.5. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look in my graph, or sorry, in my table in the cos column till I find the value of 0.5, taking that straight out of there. That is going to give me 60 degrees. So cos 60 equals 0.5. Okay, so therefore theta equals 60 degrees. Okay, moving on with question 6 in our geometry section. So if point P is here, and the aircraft flies for 100 miles at a bearing of 327 degrees from true north. So let's call this true north. 327 degrees, 360 minus 327 leaves me with 33 degrees. So the angle in here is 33 degrees, and the length of that line there is going to be 100. Essentially what I'm trying to work out is, because as the question is asked, is how far west of point P is the aircraft. So north, south, east and west. So what I'm trying to do is calculate the length of that component there. So using SOHCAHTOA, I can work out that this is my hypotenuse. If my angle is here, this is going to be my opposite. So sine is going to be my chosen function. So sine theta equals opposite over hypotenuse. So sine 33 equals opposite divided by 100. So if I transpose that one across, 100 times sine 33 degrees equals my opposite. So if I then go to my trigonometry table, 100 times 5446 equals the opposite, therefore 1, 2, 4. So 54.46 equals the opposite. So therefore I am 54.46 nautical miles or sorry, just miles west of point P. Okay. Question 7 here. What is the name of the area A, B, C in the circle below? So, given that that is a chord line and it's not passing through the center, we're not looking at a sector, we're looking at a segment. Okay, if my segment is the larger one, it would be the major. This one that they're talking about is the smaller of the two, so we are looking at a minor segment. Okay, moving on to geometry question number 8. So, from the graph below, what will be the pulse repetition rate? So that's going to be a figure off my bottom axis when the UV power is at 10 watts. So that's that axis there. So pretty much all I'm going to do is come across. I have one intercept point there. Don't be satisfied until you've cleared to make sure that there's no others. So there's a second one there. So if I follow that one down, we're looking sort of 8 or 9 kilohertz is the first instance, and our second instance, if we come across to here, we're looking at about 44 kilohertz. And finally, on to our last question. So in this question, we need to find the gradient or the slope or the angle of the line which joins points P, which is located at 3, 5, as drawn down here, with point Q at -7, 10, which is up here. Okay, second part is that we need to estimate the length of that line. So I can use the formula, so gradient equals rise over run, which is also equal to y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. So with that one, all I need to do is substitute my values. So y2 is going to be 10 minus y1 being 5 divided by x2, which is going to be -7 minus 3, leaving me with 5 over -10. So 5 divided by -10 will leave me with -0.5, which is going to be my slope or gradient. The other way I can do that is from a visual point of view, which is to look at the same concept. So if I'm looking at point P to Q, I start with P, and to work out my rise from P to get to Q, I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I have a rise of 5. If I then go, in order to find my run, or the length along my horizontal axis, I'm looking at point P, going back towards point Q, so I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So using the graph, I can draw those figures on there, and because I'm going from P in the negative direction, we're going to have a run of -10. So rise over run works out exactly the same as what it has here, as 5 divided by -10, which is the same as the formula. only difference being is how we've got there, either remembering the formula or using a graphical representation. So our next step is to estimate the length of this line. Using Pythagoras theorem, if I say that this has a length of 10 and this has a length of 5, so C equals square root of a squared plus b squared. So from there, all I have to do is substitute my values. So a will put in 5 squared plus 10 squared equals 25 plus 100, leaves us at 125. So C equals the square root of 125. The closest I can think of that I know the figure to would be 11. Yeah? So 11 is going to be 121 if I square that, and that's just going to be ever so slightly more than that. So we'll just estimate it, considering our answer there is estimate, or sorry, the question there is estimate. So we'll just estimate that at approximately 11 units. Okay, well, thanks for joining me on this walkthrough. I hope you guys got some techniques or how I would process my way through this exam, and I hope you can use that to benefit you for yours. Good luck, guys. Bye.